Let's settle this right now. Hollywood has never played by the rules, but parody films, they don't just break the rules, they run them through a wood chipper and serve them for breakfast. If you think you've seen it all, wait until you meet the movies that crashed through their own genres, flipped every cliché upside down, and had the nerve to laugh about it. So, what happens when parody films go so far off the rails, they circle back to brilliance? Let's find out, and trust me, you'll never see comedy the same way again. Blazing Saddles, 1974. Some movies tiptoe around sensitive subjects, not Blazing Saddles. Mel Brooks kicked down the swinging saloon doors and made sure everyone noticed. This Western parody didn't just poke fun at the genre, it roasted it over an open fire. The premise is outrageous. A black sheriff is sent to save a racist frontier town, and from the first whistle of the theme song, the movie dares you to keep up. Every character is a walking, talking punchline. Cleveland Little's Sheriff Bart is so cool, he makes the desert look like a spa. Gene Wilder's Waco Kid has seen more chaos than a Saturday morning cartoon. What really makes Blazing Saddles special is the way it constantly sabotages your expectations. Just when you settle into the story, Brooks blows up the set. Literally, the ending bursts through the fourth wall and lands in another movie entirely, turning a simple Western into a wild, meta free-for-all. And the jokes? Non-stop. Some land with a thud, others are so sharp they still cut today. Blazing Saddles doesn't just lampoon the Western, it turns the whole idea of Hollywood's safety into its own running gag. You can't watch this film quietly. It's a movie that makes you laugh, gasp, and sometimes wonder, did they really just do that? Yes, they did. And that's why it's still quoted, argued over, and revered today. A wild, riotous classic that went completely off the rails and never looked back. Black Dynamite, 2009. If you've ever wondered what would happen if a blaxploitation flick swallowed a box of fireworks, Black Dynamite is your answer. Michael Jai White steps into the title role and completely owns it. Deadpan delivery, jaw-dropping fight scenes, and the kind of one-liners that feel like they were shot out of a cannon. The film looks and feels exactly like a lost 70s action movie, right down to the grainy film, cheap zooms, and outlandish villains. But this isn't just a loving tribute. Black Dynamite knows every trope, and it's not afraid to call them out. You get boom mics dropping into frame, clumsy editing, and characters who talk like they're reading straight from the most outrageous script ever written. It's all intentional and all hilarious. The plot spirals into absurdity, a government conspiracy involving tainted products, kung fu showdowns, and more wild twists than you'll find in a year's worth of late-night cable. What makes Black Dynamite a legend is its total commitment. The actors play it absolutely straight, even when the world around them is pure madness. The movie never apologizes for its chaos. Instead, it dares you to keep up, as the action gets crazier and the gags pile higher. By the time the credits roll, you realize you've watched something totally off the rails, but so precisely tuned that every joke lands. It's not just a parody, it's a mic drop for the whole genre. Wet Hot American Summer, 2001. Take every summer camp movie you remember, put them in a blender, and then spill the whole thing all over the screen. That's Wet Hot American Summer. This isn't just a send-up of camp comedies, it's a full-blown fever dream. The cast is a who's who of future comedy royalty. Amy Poehler, Paul Rudd, Bradley Cooper, Elizabeth Banks, all playing characters who are, frankly, just barely holding it together. The movie takes place on the last day of camp, and everything that could possibly go wrong does. The counselors are more immature than the campers, the romances are awkward, and the talent show is a complete disaster. Then the film takes a left turn. Suddenly, you're watching a talking can of vegetables give life advice, or a montage where a group's afternoon in town spirals into total chaos. The movie doesn't just break the rules of storytelling, it ignores them completely. Wet Hot American Summer bombed at the box office but grew into a cult phenomenon, quoted by fans and revisited over and over. Why? Because it never blinks. Every scene dares you to ask, are they really going there? The answer is always yes. It's absurd, unpredictable, and somehow still deeply nostalgic. If you've ever wanted to see what happens when a parody movie takes every risk and refuses to explain itself, this is your camp. Walk Hard, The Dewey Cox Story, 2007. Most music biopics are all about the rise, the fall, and the comeback. Walk Hard takes that formula and smashes it to pieces with a guitar. John C. Reilly stars as Dewey Cox, a musician whose life is a checklist of every rock and roll cliche. Childhood tragedy, check. Wild fame and fortune, double check. Total meltdown on stage, it's practically the movie's middle name. What sets Walk Hard apart is how it lampoons not just one film, but the entire music biopic genre. It takes direct aim at movies like Ray and Walk the Line, but then spins out into wild parodies of Dylan, Brian Wilson, and anyone who ever sang into a hairbrush in the mirror. The script is loaded with musical numbers that are as catchy as they are ridiculous, and the dialogue is so packed with sly references and double meanings, you'll miss half the jokes if you blink. Riley's performance is a marvel. He plays Dewey as earnest, clueless, and somehow lovable, even as he stumbles from one disaster to the next. The supporting cast, from Jenna Fisher to Tim Meadows, throw themselves into the madness with abandon. Walk Hard doesn't just poke fun at the genre, it reinvents it, showing just how silly and how weirdly moving these stories can be. By the time the final song hits, you're rooting for Dewey Cox, even as you're still laughing at every over-the-top moment. McGruber 2010. You might think a one-joke Saturday Night Live sketch couldn't possibly stretch to a feature film. McGruber doesn't just stretch, it launches into orbit, powered by pure chaos and a complete disregard for dignity. Will Forte stars as McGruber, a clueless hero who makes every situation worse. He's supposed to be a master of improvisation, but his inventions are so bad they barely survive the first explosion. From the opening minutes, McGruber announces that it's here to torch every action movie cliché in sight. There's a villain named Dieter von Kuntz, a team of experts who don't make it past the first mission, and enough slow-motion walks to fill a year's worth of trailers. The jokes come at you like shrapnel, fast, messy, and always aiming for the biggest reaction. It's crude, it's loud, and it's so completely off the rails that you start to wonder if anyone was even trying to keep the train on track. What makes McGruber work isn't just the gags, but the cast's commitment to playing it straight. Kristen Wiig and Ryan Philippe deliver performances so sincere, they almost convince you that the world's dumbest hero could actually save the day. In the end, McGruber is a glorious mess, a love letter to action movies that's just as much about blowing things up as it is about blowing up the whole idea of action heroes. If you want a parody that refuses to apologize for anything, this is your ride. Top Secret, 1984. If you ever wondered what would happen if Airplane crashed headfirst into a Cold War spy movie, Top Secret is the explosive result. This movie doesn't just bend genres, it ties them in knots, throws in a musical, and adds a talking cow for good measure. Val Kilmer stars as Nick Rivers, a rock and roll heartthrob who finds himself fighting secret agents, dodging Nazis, and belting out Elvis-style hits, all in the same movie. What makes Top Secret such a wild ride is its refusal to stick with any single joke or storyline for too long. The script hops from one absurd gag to another. 1 minute, you're watching a backwards fight scene. The next, a bar brawl underwater. Every background detail is fair game for visual jokes, and you'll catch something new every time you watch. The filmmakers, the Zucker-Abraham Zucker team, made their careers by ignoring the rulebook, and here, they turn up the chaos to 11. Kilmer's commitment is total. He performs all his own songs, dances with wild abandon, and never lets the madness break his deadpan delivery. The film is a tribute to both spy thrillers and rock musicals, but it never settles for easy targets. Instead, it barrels through plot, parody, and even language itself, sometimes literally, as with a legendary Swedish bookstore scene that plays in reverse. Top Secret didn't win any Oscars, but it won the hearts of anyone who loves their comedies. Unpredictable and packed with off-the-wall gags. Kungpow. Enter the Fist 2002. Let's be honest, some parodies play it safe. Kungpow. Enter the Fist takes a flying leap right off the deep end. Writer-director-star Steve Odekirk splices himself into an actual old kung fu movie, overdubs every line, and then piles on special effects that look like they were built out of spare computer parts and raw determination. The plot is classic martial arts. A chosen one battles a villain named Betty, but that's where normal stops and bonkers begins. Kungpow is a living cartoon. 1 minute, a cow is fighting kung fu style. The next, characters are trading blows with talking tongues. Odekirk doesn't just break the fourth wall, he throws a party in the editing room, adding jokes on top of jokes, sound effects, and dialogue so bizarre you have to wonder if the whole film is an inside joke. The visuals swing between intentionally cheesy and surprisingly clever, and the movie's homemade vibe is a badge of honor. What keeps this movie from falling apart is its relentless pace and total lack of self-consciousness. Odekirk's performance is so all-in that even the silliest scenes land. Kungpow isn't for everyone. But if you love movies that go for broke, make fun of themselves, and never apologize for being ridiculous, it's a fever dream you'll never forget. Young Frankenstein, 1974. Mel Brooks didn't just spoof monster movies, he practically resurrected them with Young Frankenstein. This black and white comedy is both a razor-sharp parody and a loving tribute to the classic Universal horror films. Gene Wilder plays Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, a man desperate to distance himself from his infamous family name, only to end up reanimating corpses in a castle full of howling winds and secret passages. The genius of Young Frankenstein lies in its attention to detail. Brooks uses authentic sets and lighting, but twists every trope until it snaps. Every character is a caricature. Igor with his wandering hump, Madeline Kahn's over-the-top drama, Peter Boyle's soulful monster who just wants to dance. The film throws in musical numbers, lightning storms, and running gags that pile higher than the castle battlements. Brooks and Wilder walk a tightrope, playing the characters completely straight, no matter how wild the situation gets. The jokes are clever, the timing is perfect, and the movie never forgets its roots, even as it turns gothic horror into slapstick gold. Young Frankenstein didn't just go off the rails, it invented a new set of tracks, and everyone else has been trying to catch up ever since. Shaun of the Dead, 2004. What happens when you cross British awkwardness with the zombie apocalypse? You get Shaun of the Dead, a film that not only parodies the undead genre, but becomes one of its smartest entries. Simon Pegg stars as Shawn, a directionless guy whose plan for dealing with zombies involves a pint at his local pub and the world's slowest rescue mission. Director Edgar Wright stuffs every frame with visual gags and clever nods to classic horror films, but he also grounds the chaos in real emotion. You'll be laughing 1 minute as characters hurl records at zombies, then caught off guard by moments of genuine heartbreak. The film is a love letter to George Romero, but it isn't afraid to poke fun at itself and the whole idea of everyday people saving the world. The brilliance of Shaun of the Dead is in its mashup of tones. It goes from workplace satire to disaster movie, from romantic comedy to survival horror, often in a single scene. The jokes are smart, the scares are real, and the heart is always in the right place. This isn't just a parody that went off the rails, it's a cult classic that redefined what a comedy horror could be. Robin Hood Men in Tights, 1993. Robin Hood movies are supposed to be heroic, serious, and just a bit noble. Men in Tights shreds that reputation, tosses it in the moat, and dances on top of it. Mel Brooks returns to the director's chair and lets every single actor go wild. Cary Elwes plays Robin as a swashbuckler who's equal parts cool and clueless. Dave Chappelle makes his movie debut as the quick-witted Achu, while Richard Lewis turns Prince John into the world's most neurotic villain. Men in Tights isn't just a Robin Hood parody, it's a variety show in medieval disguise. Musical numbers break out at random, breaking the tension and adding to the chaos. The movie pokes fun at everything from bad accents to ill-fitting costumes, tossing in jokes about previous Robin Hood adaptations, modern life, and even studio execs. Brooks is a master at layering gags, and the cast's commitment to silliness sells every moment. Even when the jokes are groan-worthy, the movie's infectious energy pulls you in. There are sword fights, puns, and plenty of winks at the camera. Men in Tights may not have won any awards, but it did win a devoted fan base, and proved that, sometimes, the silliest version of a story is the one people remember best. Scary Movie 2000. When it comes to horror parodies, Scary Movie doesn't just bend the rules, it turns them into a slapstick obstacle course. The Wayans brothers set their sights on every late 90s teen thriller and horror film, especially Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, but nothing in pop culture is safe from their chaos. Anna Faris leads the cast as Cindy, the eternal survivor with more bad luck than sense, while Marlon Wayans and Shawn Wayans throw themselves into every ridiculous scenario imaginable. Scary Movie isn't about clever, slow-burn comedy. It's a non-stop barrage of visual gags, rapid-fire jokes, and over-the-top set pieces that dare you not to laugh out loud. Every horror trope gets its moment. Clueless victims, mysterious phone calls, jump scares, and killers who can't seem to finish the job. But the script doesn't stop there. It pulls in references to talk shows, TV ads, and just about every celebrity headline from the era. What really makes Scary Movie legendary is how little it cares about playing it safe. The humor is big, bold, and often completely absurd, but that's the secret sauce. It's a parody that shouts, trips over itself, and still lands the punchline. Even after all these years, it's quoted at parties, shared in memes, and held up as the movie that made fun of everything and got away with it. Hot Fuzz, 2007. Small towns are supposed to be peaceful. Hot Fuzz rips that idea to shreds and leaves you grinning through the wreckage. Edgar Wright directs Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in a buddy cop adventure that starts off slow and ramps up to absolute madness. Pegg's character, Nicholas Angel, is the ultimate super cop, exiled from London to a quiet village that hides a mountain of secrets. What begins as a tongue-in-cheek police drama quickly explodes into car chases, wild shootouts, and a conspiracy straight out of a fever dream. Hot Fuzz is packed with loving nods to Hollywood action movies, from Bad Boys to Point Break, but it never loses its very British sense of humor. The script is tight, the editing razor-sharp, and the supporting cast is a parade of quirky suspects who all seem to be in on a joke you just can't predict. Every scene is loaded with visual jokes, blink and you'll miss it gags, and running bits that pay off in the most unexpected ways. What really makes Hot Fuzz go off the rails is how it keeps topping itself. Every time you think the story can't get any wilder, Wright dials it up another notch. By the end, you're watching a showdown so explosive, it makes big-budget blockbusters look tame. It's a masterclass in parody, one that celebrates, mocks, and improves the genre all at once. Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood, 1996. Some movies have short, punchy titles. This one is a whole comedy routine before the credits even roll. Don't Be a Menace takes aim at every hood film from the early 90s, blending scenes, characters, and dialogue from classics like Boys in the Hood and Menace II Society into one wild, chaotic send-up. The Wayans brothers are back, with Shawn as the wide-eyed ashtray and Marlon as Lock Dog, the friend who takes every bad idea to the extreme. This movie is a tornado of running gags, sight jokes, and moments so outrageous you have to pause and rewind just to be sure you saw what you think you saw. The plot is simple. A young man tries to survive life in the city, surrounded by family and friends who seem to sabotage him at every turn, but the script is anything but basic. The jokes never let up, the performances are all in, and the film doesn't waste a single second on subtlety. Don't Be a Menace stands out because it never tries to be just a parody. It's an all-out comedy assault on every trope, character, and lesson Hollywood ever squeezed into a coming-of-age drama. The result? A film that's so off the rails, it's still echoing in pop culture decades later. There you have it. 13 parody films that didn't just poke fun at their genres, they detonated the blueprint and dared you to keep up. These are the movies that proved comedy doesn't have to play by the rules. In fact, it's way better when it doesn't. Which one warped your sense of humor the most? Drop your favorites in the comments, share this with your fellow film rebels, and don't forget to subscribe for more cult classics and cinematic chaos. Until next time, keep laughing at the unexpected and never trust a movie that plays it safe.